you mentioned that you're a nightclub owner and automatically people assume either you're addicted to drugs, you sell drugs, you're some sort of like gangster, and it's just not the reality.
Today, I sit down with Danny Grant. Danny is a Melbourne-based entrepreneur who began his career as one of Australia's leading nightclub promoters. He has since co-founded the Hello Sunshine Festival and launched the now popular Wet Pussy Shot brand.
I would say at one point I was one of the most respected weekly nightclub promoters due to a sound that we created, which was called Melbourne Bounce.
You've spoken about like growing up in a pretty rough home environment, went through the public housing system, and then you've clawed your way out of that and become a millionaire.
All those things when we were like 10, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna travel the world, I'm gonna do whatever, and it's like, I've done it.
Where do you think that confidence came from?
I don't know, man. I didn't change for the world changed for me. I felt like a square peg trying to fit into a circle hole. And then at some point, that circle hole turned square and I slipped straight into it.
Danny Grant, welcome to the podcast.
It's happening.
I'm so stoked to have you here. We did our little rapid fire before. If anyone hasn't listened to that, you should listen to it because it's an absolute pisser. And I'm super keen to get into it because I've known you for a long time and I don't think we've sat down for a couple of hours and chatted, and you've got a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge and a lot of stories, and I think there's some amazing things that people can take out of this. So
cool.
Keen to do it.
Same.
So my first question for you is, as one of Melbourne's most successful nightclub promoters, you've hosted artists like Deadmau5, Dom Dollar, Afrojack, a ton more. You've run multiple festival brands. You've got a fast-moving consumer goods alcohol brand that's running nationally. So you're an entrepreneur, and now you're building a media personality. It's clear you've learnt lessons that have allowed you to transfer skill sets from growing up, going into nightlife, and then into many different industries. So what did you learn during your early years as a freshly 18-year-old nightclub promoter that then built the foundation of multi-industry success later on?
It's kind of weird because I think that, people do business courses for 4 years and all that sort of stuff, right? For me, it was like the opposite. So when I was younger, I used to buy cigarettes, like legitimately, it was like back then it was like $11. And I would split them and I would sell them, I think it was a 30 pack. And I would sell them at 50 cents or $1. And then I would make anywhere between $15 to $30, right?
At 18?
No, at like 13, right? So at school, but that was my business course. And so I figured out, I'm like, cool, all right, well, firstly is that you buy something and then you break it up and you sell it in units, right? Then second to that, there's supply and demand. So if there's no cigarettes in the schoolyard, you can charge more, right? That's how it works. So when I kind of went through my life, I'd work and whatnot, and then I kind of understand like, well, all they're doing is buying your hours. It's the same thing. So every single business fundamentally is the same. Someone is purchasing something, they're either breaking it down or they're changing the way that it's used, and then they're selling it to someone at a higher rate. And then as the supply or demand of that product, it goes up and down. That's from everything, right? So I learned that, and that was the fundamentals that I learned in business. So that was legitimately, for me, it was just like not a penny drop straight away. Like as soon as I heard it, I was like, cool. And then I'd be like, well, it doesn't matter what it is. Like I could sit here now, we could name 5 businesses. I could break down how it's exactly the same as that cigarette model that I did, right? So then as I went along, I was like, okay, when I worked in nightclubs, I noticed as I was selling tickets that the more demand on an event, the higher or more expensive people would pay. Same thing as the cigarettes with the schoolyard, there was less things that were going on. But what I realized is that I could change that. Yeah, so by using my words and my terms, or like limiting things and coming up with strategies, I was like, oh, I can actually control the supply and demand. So realistically, fundamentally, I understood supply and demand, basic supply and demand. I understood the fundamentals of business, and then I understood how to adapt that by language or by situation. And then that is my life. In a 10-second version, like that is the Danny Grant fucking course. So I then started to do events and whatnot, and then I would use with artists and I'd do different bits and pieces. Back then, before we even had Facebook, dude, like you name some of those artists like Deadmau5, Afrojack, we weren't using online strategies. Like we were legitimately going, I remember we had an artist called Zoo Brazil, and they would have one song that was mad. So I found this one song that was mad, and I'm like, cool. So then I was like, sweet, so we're gonna do this guy's Zoo Brazil, and I needed a reason to do an event, right? Because I had weekly nights, and I was like, I wanna make money on a Friday. So I booked a venue, did the process that you do when you run an event, and I had this artist called Zoo Brazil, and at the start I was like, who the fuck's Zoo Brazil? I'm like, well, I don't really even know either, but I was like, oh, you don't know Zoo Brazil? Like Zoo Brazil, he's the guy. And then I found this tune, I'd be like, suss out this tune. Then I downloaded that tune into a Dropbox and I gave it to all my DJ friends and I started making them play that at nightclubs. And then I started sending it around to everybody. Next thing you know, it was on forums and everyone was downloading it. And then Zoo Brazil was this massive thing. And I sold out that Zoo Brazil show with my partner. So I was like, cool, this works. This is a model. And then I basically did that throughout my whole career. Sometimes you miss, sometimes you win, right? So there's sometimes you try to create hype, it doesn't work. Other times it kind of happens naturally, organically. Other times you can manufacture that hype. And then basically from there, when I started working in consumer goods during the pivot of COVID, which is like a sort of long story in itself, I was like, oh, this is the same thing. So if you actually look at all my products that I do, I actually work off a festival model where it's sign up, limited stock, you get X, 2 weeks later more drops, you get X. Then I use that supply and demand to then negotiate terms with major suppliers, and then that's how I get in. So it's like, what I've just said is how I've lived and ran every business I have since I was a kid. And I was taught by myself, and it was more of a demand because when I was growing up, I was poor. So my friends had nice branded shoes or food. Realistically, that's how poor we were. So I was like, well, how am I going to get this? And that's how I figured it out. So I kind of crash course myself in business. So even now when I do stuff and people are like, you're this big guy, business guy, you're an entrepreneur, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, in my head, what I just explained to you is that's it. Like that's the fundamentals of business. And I guess what scares people is the risk. And that's something that I never had an issue with. Like, I'd go as far to say I love risk.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah, so like that's it. Like that's how it all sort of started.
Yeah, cool. You mentioned that the key part of a lot of this was creating hype and some limiting supply. But you also mentioned that some of them didn't work. So what kind of frameworks have you noticed now that are relevant to creating hype effectively and consistently?
Currently, right now, you mean? Or like?
Yeah, well, right now is important.
Last year, I did a thing. So I did this thing. It was Danny Rants pop-up rave. And it sold out in 2 minutes. And then this is the first time I've said this out loud. It didn't. It sold out in 6 weeks. But what people don't know is that I was dropping it in the back of my TikToks and I was mentioning it and I was doing lives and I was getting people to sign up. So effectively, that was me selling the show. So they were signing up. And I had like 6,000 signups. I had 1,000 tickets. So I knew that when I dropped this, they were going to go like that because I created this demand, and then I made sure that that narrative was there's 6,000 signups, there's 1,000 tickets. Everyone knew. So as soon as I dropped those tickets, they sold out in literally 2 minutes. But what the reality of it is that I created this hype over 6 weeks
before that day.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that's changed. We used to do the same thing in nightclubs before, but we'd create the hype as the event was on sale. Whereas I just did it prior, and like you look at, and that was me looking at Fred again, same thing. And I don't know, I just see through things really quickly. He does the same. He's got a Discord. He's got this. He's got that.
He's got a Discord?
Yeah, there's a process where he comes. They bubble. They talk about it. He creates the hype beforehand. So then he drops, and you're like, oh my god, he sold out 300 labors in 3 days, but he didn't. He sold out in 4 months, and he books all these venues. The reason why he books all those venues is because he wants people to know the Fred Again's coming. Everyone starts to talk about it. We know what's going to happen. It's a part of the strategy, right? So Fred Again doesn't sell out in a minute. He sells out in 3 months.
Yeah.
And so I kind of saw that and I did that as an experiment and it worked for me. And the reason why I did that was because I wanted to show, because everyone's like, the industry's fucked. I'm like, it's not fucked. You're just looking at it the old way.
Yeah.
Where there's a new way of doing it, But I haven't gone and backed it up and used it again because it was exhausting doing it for free. But
yeah, I mean, you got to figure out a way to make it actually financially.
And I couldn't, I need to want to. And at the moment, with everything I've got going on, I just don't have the time yet.
Yeah.
But I will eventually.
Yeah, that's all right. It's a good pilot test to a new process in how to market anything really.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah, it's very powerful. So you spoke briefly when you were younger. You hustled hard. You had like a harder upbringing.
Yeah.
It sounded like you didn't have much money. So I wanted to kind of talk about that a bit more because I know you previously, you've spoken about like growing up in a pretty rough home environment. You went through the public housing system, and then you've clawed your way out of that and become a millionaire around, I don't know the exact timeline, but before 30.
Yeah.
Which is great, which is amazing. So how did those early years shape you, and what positive key lessons outside of the one that you spoke about specifically in business did you take from those times?
So I feel like this podcast is going to go from laughing to deep really quickly.
It's okay, it's part of it.
Yeah, but so like when I was little, man, like this is like, I've actually never mentioned this in any form of podcast before, but I remember, and this is pretty cool, but I remember my stepfather and my mum, and they were fighting because a car broke down. So my stepdad couldn't get to work and we were fucking just getting by. And then I remember my mum, they were arguing that they didn't know how they were going to get the money to give it to the mechanic to fix the car.
Yeah.
And then I remember them having a serious conversation about my mum potentially having sex with a guy. And I know that that's really fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And then that was that moment where I'm like, I'm not living like this. Like I'm not going to live my life where I have to talk to my wife and have a serious conversation about potential sexual favors to pay for a car so that we can fucking eat. And I know
How old were you again?
I would have been like 11 probably. So
man.
I was like, maybe even younger. But at that point, I was like, this is fucked. I don't want to live like this. So, I started to dream. I'm a big dreamer. So I started to dream about a life past this. And I feel like that's how I got through a lot of it because like I had drug addict parents, a lot of DV in the house, not from male base. It was more my mother was like the domestic violence sort of person. And then it was just a very, very like, we were poor and a shitty upbringing, a lot of mental health issues and all this sort of stuff. Like, it's its own story in itself, like a cycle, whatever. And then I just dream of this better life. Like, and I always been dreaming of this better life. And, and people would think that I was a dreamer because like how, and at this time I was a bad kid too. Like I wasn't a good kid. I wasn't a bad kid. I don't believe in bad kids. I believe in kids in shit circumstances.
Yeah.
So I was acting out or whatnot.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, like I think it's, you can't get attention at home because all these things are going on. So you start doing bad things to get attention elsewhere. But during that period, and I guess maybe that's how I figured out this model so quickly because I was like desperate to move on. And then my friends always had Rip Curl, and I know this is such a first world problem, but they had like all the brands back then, and I just never had any access to it. I couldn't buy CDs, I couldn't do whatever. And my friends used to call me Bilo Boy because our family like used to buy all this foods. And then I was just like, when I grow up, like I'm gonna not have this. This is not gonna be my life. And then I feel as though that was the motivator for me to learn. But in saying that, I dropped in and out of it. So I kept going back into cycles where I'd do drugs and I would muck up and do crime effectively, and then sort of be in college gates and drink with them every day and live like that, and then I'd get out and I'd be good again, and then I'd fall back into the same sort of cycle. So it took me a while to get out of it, but the lesson I guess that I learned was want and just being like, I'm a storyteller, like that's my thing now. But I'm also a writer. I used to write a lot, which no one would actually know. But when I was little, I used to do the same thing. So I used to write these stories, and that was like how I escaped the fighting in the background. So I'd be in my room with a pen and a pad back then, writing these like fucking stories and yarns, and they were full mythical and like make believe, but that's how I escaped.
Yeah.
And the music was an escape for me because I'd listen to them stories, and like my love of music is actually not sound, it's actually story, which weirdly enough, dance music is sound, but most of my favorite songs are like stories. But I just at that point when I was living and hearing those things, I was like, this is not my life. Like this, and that's how I think I got through it because I was like, it's only temporary. I've only got to get to 16 or 17. Then I'm going to live this life. And I remember driving past big houses with my sister, and I'd point at mansions. I'm like, I'm going to live in that. And they were the things I used to say. And like now they've transpired, and we laugh about that sometimes too. She's like, all those things when we were like 10, you'd be like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to do whatever. And it's like, I've done it. So I think it was this unbelievable belief that I could and that I would. And the reason why I think I did that and why I was so strong was because that was how I dealt with what was going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Where do you think that confidence came from?
I don't know, man. I'm like, when I was growing up, I believed that I was different from forever, as long as I can remember. Like maybe I'm delusional, I don't know. But when I was born, I was just like, I don't know, I'm different than everybody here. But not in a bad way, like when I was arrogant. I was just like, there's something special about me. So like from memory, I just remember thinking that I was like special. And I don't know why and that happened because like, there's a lot of things that were against me. And then maybe when I was younger, I was loud, I was a big thinker. I was a bit of a giant character. I still am. But people would always be like that. Like, oh, fuck, you're a giant character. Like you're very, very unforgettable. So I think that those little compliments that would come in from teachers or family or people's friends or whatever would just continue to like, I'd just eat them up. And then I was just like, there's something special about me. There's something special about me. So because of that, when I had these not delusional because they became reality, but these thoughts that, some would look at delusional, I was like, wow, I'm not the same as every other kid who didn't do it. There's something special about me. But I don't know where that come from. And it's funny because I obviously interview a lot of musicians now, successful ones, and they all say they felt the same when they were kids. So don't know why, man. Don't know why or how, but there's something that is born in some people that they just believe that they're due for greater things, and I believe that, and I do not remember ever not thinking that. So from my first memory, I just remember thinking like, big things are going to happen to me. And even as things have gone, and we talk about how crazy my life has gotten, in my head I still think that there's more to come. Like I just generally, I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, this is the beginning, it's going to get bigger. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm destined for something, but I don't know what. And I've had that feeling since I was born.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that, especially with this podcast, like this form, it's a long, slow grind, but I'm just doing it because I just know it'll work eventually.
Yeah, I think you have to. Like, and that's the same as me going through the same feeling that you have with this, which is like founded, is the same feeling I had going through, domestic violence and public housing and all that sort of shit. Was it was like, it's gonna work eventually. Like that's how. Don't know what, don't know how, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah, there's a. I mean, it's not on the same intensity, but I grew up there was a period of time when my parents got divorced and mum was, raising 2 kids by herself, and I've got a similar, well, not on that level, but I've got a story where I had something similar happen where I realized what you could do with just like a bit of showmanship and a bit of like energy. I was this, those chocolate boxes that you have when you would like sell the chocolates as a kid?
Yeah.
So mum didn't have the money to pay for my basketball game that night. And we had the chocolates and she was like, just sell the chocolates, go on the street. I would have been like 8 or 9, maybe 10. So go on the street, go door knocking, sell the chocolates, and then I'll put the money back in the thing. So I was like, fuck it. I was like 10 years old. I take the chocolates and instead of selling them for $1, I like put some charm on and sold it for $2 and then pocketed the difference to pay for the game. But it was a moment where it's like, you're a 10-year-old kid.
You figure it out.
And you're figuring shit like that out. You're walking up to people's front doors in Geelong at the time. It's stuff that like doesn't happen to a lot of people, I feel like. You get thrown so far in the deep end, you have to figure it out.
I think everybody can, I just don't think they can. That's my thought process. Like, I'm a real lover and believer of humans. And like when someone's like, I can't, I'm like, you can. You just don't want to, or you're not letting yourself allow to think you can. Like, nothing's impossible. Like, the feats and things that I've done, from personal to just insane things, like fucking bungee jumping, boxing, diving, all this sort of shit. It's like, I just believe I can. Like, that's the only difference between me and everybody else. And I don't think that I'm special in the sense that, when I grew up, I thought I was different, but it's like, anyone can. I don't look at someone going, it's like, a good example is running. And I know we've done the thickest Steve together.
Yeah.
But it's like, everyone's like, I can't run a K. It's like, well, no, you can. Every single person in the world can.
Yeah.
You just got to fucking try.
Yeah.
So that's how my big belief is, that I feel like people are way stronger than they think they are.
Yeah.
And I believe that when you have a situation like that where you've got to figure it out, you always will. And that's everybody. There's probably an IQ point where maybe they can't or something like that. But at the same time, it's like tough times make tough people.
Yeah.
And that I truly believe that everybody has the same power as I do. I'm no different than them.
Yeah, the running thing was an interesting one because I had the same belief of like, I'm not a runner. I can't run. I fucking hate running. And then had nothing else to do during COVID. It's like, oh, maybe I'll run. And then, 2 kilometers went to 4, which went to 5. And then like, I've never ran 5 kilometers before. And then went to 8. And then it's like, oh shit, I'm at 12. Oh, wait, I'm at half marathons, 21.
I can do this.
I could probably do this.
Yeah. And it's the best one. Like, running's like the best thing because it's like everybody says it. And then like you can't. Like every fucking human, as long as you can run, like you got legs, they're functional, you can run a half marathon. You just got to train. Yeah. And that's like, if you kind of put that as a metric of life, like that's how I look at things. It's like, it's got to start. And there's nothing you can do multiple times that you don't get better at.
Yeah, that's exactly
There's
right.
0 things in the world. Like if you do anything 100 times, you'll be better than the first time you did it. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that leads into my next question of like the tough environments that you grow up in. You can go one of 2 ways. You can become like a hard ass and able to just like get shit done, or you can get crushed. So, and I've met people on both sides of those spectrums. And so how did you end up unlearning any like self-doubts and any negative beliefs that might have like crept up over the years? And what would you say to, maybe your kids now that you are teaching how to navigate the world, if those kind of negative beliefs of a situation where they can't do something and they don't believe that they can like achieve more than their current existence, like what would you say to those people?
Firstly, I'll say that like I did both, so I did the like things where I was breaking into houses and with other kids and fighting and doing all that sort of stuff. And then on the other spectrum of it, I had mental health problems. I actually was in a mental hospital for 6 months when I was 16. At the Austin hospital because I had severe anxiety disorder. So even though I had this unfound confidence, I didn't, I still had that devil on my shoulder telling me like all these different things. Mine was more paranoia, probably to do with marijuana smoking at the time.
Yeah.
But I thought people were trying to get me into shit like that.
Okay.
But I think that the first thing I want to kind of mention is that even though I'm talking about how well my self-talk is, it's still a lot of times it's shit,
Yeah.
And the things that actually fix it for me are, like we talked about earlier before the pod, is less alcohol. For me, no drugs, but not for some others, less drugs, and sleep and hydration. I put Hydrolyte in this cup before this thing because I'm worried about hydration all the time.
Yeah.
And those 4 things help my self-talk. So when I feel good, it's easy for me to tell myself that I'm the best. But when I feel shit, it's very, very hard for me myself to listen to my positive thoughts. One thing I do is I'm very good at, like, even if I feel shit, repeating things in my head. So say I feel shit and I know I feel shit, I'll sit there and be like, everything's good. You're lucky. This is your da-da-da. And I start to do that self-talk and I repeat, and it really fucking works for me.
It works, yeah.
So I don't know if it works for everybody, but it works for me. Affirmations, I guess, in my head.
Yeah.
And I force myself to smile. Another one. I'm like,
yeah, I love that.
Truthfully, it works.
Yeah.
And so with my kids, I would just say, don't, like, talk to people is another big one. Like, I'm really lucky. I've got a couple of good best friends that I can call, and when I'm feeling shit, I can say I feel shit. And I'm having self-doubt. I can have self-doubt, but I still do have it, man. Like, I still have self-doubt, no denying that. I just, like, I work and recognize that I have it, and then I work on trying to turn it around. Does that make sense? So with my kids, I don't know, I just, like, believe big, dream big. You are going to doubt yourself, but, overcome it by repetition and just be better every day. Like, you don't try and solve the world's problems tomorrow. Try and work out 100 steps to get to solve them, and I reckon you'll get pretty fucking close.
Yeah. I mean, that's you've experienced so much, so how do you put that into your children as best as possible, but give them the space to also experience their own journey? I think I guess that's a big part of this podcast and on these conversations, is helping people to just, like, think bigger.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing all of that. There was a lot in that. I want to move into more, the nightlife side of things, that next stage of your your experiences. And so you started off at 18, you started off doing guest lists, which is like $3 a head. You don't have, like, much money floating around. How did you turn that lack of resources into a skill and a blessing, as opposed to it being, a negative when you begun that career in nightlife?
It's, like, a pretty interesting one on that. It does roll into all the stuff we talked about. So when I was going through that stuff, when my parents were having their issues, and I moved a lot. So I lived with, like, my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, at times on my dad on the weekends. I lived in, like, some stupid amount of houses, like, say 16 houses before I was 21 or something. So because of that, I was at a different football club than I was at school. And then I didn't have any school friends in that football club. Then I worked it down the road in a place called Vermont, and nobody from my school or my football club worked at that place. And then I'd been at another school before that. So back then, again, you're not talking, I effectively was fucking Facebook, so I was meeting all these people and I'm really generally interested in people. So, like, I'm always, like, I would collect people like Pokemon, because I talk to them and I want to hear their story. So, then I remember who they are and whatever. Yeah. So as time went along, that sort of negativity of having to move all the time and sort of being in the shitty homes and whatever turned into a positivity, because when I became a club promoter, I was like, okay, well, I know everybody. So I was able to give tickets and stuff, and, like, that's something that's easy to do now, because effectively they're influencers. But back then it was like people knew who I was because I was moving all the time, and then they connect the dots and whatever it was. So I started to make money off that, but it wasn't at the beginning. It was all about free drinks, free entry, and making some money. It was only when I started to, like, do well out of it, and I'd make, like, $200-300 off a $3 guest list.
Yeah.
And back then, what used to happen was your name would go viral. So people wouldn't know who you were, but they knew, like, Kyle Hands, my ex-business partner, still one of my best friends. But we were the same. So me and him were, like, people would be like, Danny Grant. Like, years and years later, I'd be like, oh, my name's Danny. Like, what? Grant? Like, fuck, bro, I use your guest list at this club for years,
Yeah.
So I had a good network that I built, and then they told people their names because they used to get $5 off.
Yeah.
So then I started to make like $200-300, and I was only 18, just out of school. I worked at Fitness First for like a couple of weeks. That was it. And then I was like, I reckon I can just do this, because my mates were getting paid as tradies for like $180. Like, they were getting paid less than I was, and I was getting free piss. And at the time, like, that's what they were spending their money on anyway. Free entry at everywhere, because I guest lists all over the place. And then I was going and picking up these envelopes. And then, so I started to do that, and I started selling tickets. And then what I started to do, which is really cool, is I knew a lot of people, because I grew up, again, in a rough area, who sold drugs. So I was like, bro, take these tickets. And I'm like, here's these events for whatever. As you're selling the drugs, flip these tickets. So then they would sell like 7, 10 tickets, and I would sell. I remember doing one at Evolution back in the day, and I sold 150 tickets, and they're like, how? And I didn't even go. And basically what it was whoever was connected to whoever was, they just needed them. So I was selling them all and collecting the cash from them, and they would get their $5 and then from whatever they were selling, you know. So they were becoming like a bit of a Van Wilder one-stop shop. And I used that network to build it up. And then I started making like $500, $600, $700. And it doesn't sound like a lot now, but when you're an 18-year-old kid and your friends are making 180 on the first year of Prince
crazy.
I was like a millionaire.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't paying for alcohol. And then still, even then, it wasn't like it was a thing that I thought about, oh, I'm going to do this and this is going to become my full-time job. And then I put together a pitch and I gave it to Billboard and I was like, I'm going to run your side room. And then I did the old, well, otherwise I'm going to leave somewhere else. And they sort of saw, okay, well, we can have him here or he's going to go somewhere else. And they gave me a retainer. And it was actually, I remember it was $500 a week. At that point, I did that. And then around that same time I did an event, I made $2,500. And I thought I was a multi-millionaire.
I had that exact same experience. I was working for Steve Brown in
Toast.
Geelong at Toast. And my first party I ever ran, we cleared $2,500, and I remember being like, huh. I know that exact same feeling.
Yeah, and I was like, I've actually got to find it, but it's like I had it rolled out and I took a photo of me laying in it. And I was like rolling around. I was like, fuck, I'm never gonna have to work again. Quit my job, and then sort of started to work, and then I started to do events, and I did this, and I started to run club nights, and kind of transpired and like kind of evolved from there. But I was making really great coin, and and at the time, again, coming from a sort of a rougher background, I didn't think about the future. And thank fuck I didn't, because maybe I would have stopped, you know? Yeah. But at the time I was just like, I was thinking about next weekend. Like, how am I gonna go party? Someone would say we're going here. How am I gonna raise the money to do this? And we're going to the pub, like, you know, I really blew a lot of cash in those first 3 to 4 years. Mm-hmm. But what I did do was I figured out how to network and create brands and all these different things. And in the wash up, when I decided to become more normal, I had such a great skill set, if that makes sense. So that was basically how the bad life and good life became a positive life. And I didn't want to do what the other boys are doing, because I didn't want to go to jail. I didn't want to get in trouble. Yeah. But at the same time, I was living a very relatively similar life to them. And it felt like I just always had cash and I always did whatever. And that was the people that I saw more than, you know, someone who went to university and learned how to do things and had a traditional job. But I just didn't want to work, bro. I just wanted to have fun all the time.
Yeah.
Still do.
Yeah, you still do. Yeah. I mean, it's a good way to be. Like, isn't that the end point? People work their ass off to go have fun. So yeah, just like have fun and manage to make a good living while also having fun. It's like the actual dream.
100% it is.
It's the literal dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So the guest list turned into bigger festivals, turned into bigger events, bigger festivals. What was the moment what would you say one of your peak moments was in the nightlife industry?
So overall, I would say it's got to be Hello Sunshine, right? Yeah. So that was basically like when off the back of retiring. I spoke to Kieran from Dole, his name is, from Lucky Entertainment, and he was like, dude, would you come back and do something? And I'm like, not really, man. Like, I'm sort of done. I'm in this alcohol thing now. And then I was like, if I was going to do it, it would have to be something that was for people my age that I could take my kids to. And we could listen to bands that we used to with my friends that now don't listen to new current music. And that lasts for 20 years. And so we did it and we pulled it off.
Framework.
Yeah, and it was and we just I was like, exactly what I wanted was what it was. I had my kids side of stage, meeting Amy Shark and Veronica's. Then I'm in the dance floor later in the night with Grinspoon, which is one of my favorite artists when I was a kid, with my 5 best friends, fucking moshing, you know. So it was exactly what I wanted it to be. But we did, I think it was like 9.5 or something like that the first year, and then the year after was like 11. And that to me was just, it was fucking awesome. You know, and there was surrounded by, it's weird because like the people who were famous when I was a teenager, in my head, are more famous than the people who are famous now. Like, so I'll drop names that I meet or hang around with, or, you know, like they're friends of mine now who are way more famous than the people that I listened to as a teenager, but I don't think it like that. Yeah. But still to this day, like when I meet guys, like, you know, I said before, like 360, Grinspoon, the Phil Jamison, his name is, Bliss Nessa, I'm like, I'm nervous to talk to them. And it's so odd because I've met Skrillex, Deadmau5, and no issue. But it's because of when I was younger, they were just these like larger than life icons. And so to do that, even though it might seem strange to others considering the artists that I have worked with, and have guys like, you know, Phil Jamison from Grinspoon, Bliss and Esso, we had fucking Cat Empire, like all these massive artists that I listened to when I was a kid, on stage, watching it, running it, dancing with my friends, being with my kids, like not much beats that. You know, like that was one of the greatest moments of my life. And then second to that was non-related, was Limp Bizkit 2 years ago, Good Things. It was like,
that was so fun.
Fucking epic.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my event, but yeah.
On the Limp Bizkit thing, it's I remember seeing him. Well, I remember seeing them like 10 years ago, maybe a Big Day Out or one of those festivals, and he's wearing an oversized baggy tee. He's wearing sneakers and he's wearing like baggy jeans. And I remember thinking, looking at him, being like, this dude's so like out of touch with the trends. And then he comes back, last year, he's wearing an oversized tee, oversized pants, and like trainers. Like, that dude's nailing it.
Dad fashion.
Yeah, it's like he's done the same thing for the next 10 years, and the fashion has like
full
turned
circle
back into that.
100%.
Really cool. But that was hilarious. Yeah, no, I love that. So that's a big jump, right? Going from 10,000, 11,000 person festivals. Before that, you were 18 running clubs. You went into owning a nightclub at some point. In
25 I was.
Yeah, so you're 25, you're owning a club. One, the first thing is, did you fund it yourself?
Yes.
So
I had partners, but my portion of what I owned, I funded myself, yes.
So what strategies did you develop to build up that savings base to begin with? Like, how did you approach that to then get the nest egg that was sufficient enough for then you to take this bigger leap?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And I sort of kind of touched on it earlier, but like my always thing was like, I want, so therefore I have to make. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if I'm like not wanting things, I actually don't really save. You know, like I might do now because I'm an adult and I've got family and whatnot. But when I was a kid, just do whatever I wanted. And then if I wanted something, I would then just knuckle down and work. And this is where my work ethic, like my work ethic is insane. Like for people that know me like you do, I work full time in my business. Then I run festival and events outside. I manage artists and I do content. And I do fucking hours of content a week, which is editing and stuff. I don't know how many hours of work, right? It's a stupid amount. But that work ethic...
Do you enjoy it?
I just my life. I do enjoy it, but I mean, like, I'm just so used to it. But the thing for me is that fucking where that came from, that work ethic and drive and that ability to do these stupid hours and not really care about it, comes from wanting. If that makes sense. So when I was like 23 and I wanted a house, outrageous, like 23. And I was like, so what I did was I just worked my ass off, yeah. And so I was doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. I was doing 3 events. And then you talked about before being one of the more successful nightclub promoters like ever. In my generation, I would have been, because I was doing hundreds of events, you know, like, so I was running 3 club nights and I was doing 3-4 events on long weekends. I'd sometimes do 12, 15 shows.
Yeah,
and
I've been like watching you from afar for 10 years now.
We do 10, 12,000 people through our stuff in a weekend. So it was like, those things that you saw were normally to do with me wanting something. So when I bought my house and I did whatever, and I look back at it now, it's like I should have just stayed a promoter because nightclubs aren't what they're cracked up to be. But I was like, that's my next step. That's what I'm going to do. So I just sort of knuckled down, worked hard, saved everything. And because I had nothing originally, it's very easy for me to go back to nothing. Yeah. So I'm like, that's a thing, it's strange. And a lot of people get to a level and they're like, well, I'm used to eating this and I'm used to going here. And I don't care. Like, I care for my family because sometimes now I've got my missus and stuff. But if I've got to go back to eating sausages and just wearing fucking the same clothes, I don't not care a fuck. Yeah. And where I live now, I've got a nice house, big block, I've got a pool. In my head, I'm like, this is still 20 million times better than the public housing that I was living in, sharing a room with my brother, you know? Like, so it's my sister at the time, actually, in that one. But, and so in my head, it's like the degree of like good and bad, if I've got to push back here to get back up here, I'm happy to do that, you know? And so I feel like that's another thing going back to that whole, I'm the opposite of victim mentality, but I'm so good at living off a fucking smell of an oily rag that when I need to lock in, I do. And if it's 1 year, 2 years or whatever, just lock in and I just don't spend and save and I just continue. And I think it's just like that vision and goal and that delusional will to want is how I do it. So I don't have like a metric, like a barefoot investor. I don't think I could write a book. It'd be like the book of ADHD living. What not to do unless you're fucking insane.
Yeah, the idea that you've experienced like really, really rough experiences and like you've had nothing, so you don't care about going back to that, it makes you quite strong.
Definitely.
Do you know much about stoicism? Have you heard of?
Yeah, I do. I've got one of my brothers, so I've got like 7. from different mums and dads and shit, which is kind of normal for people like me. But he is mad into stoicism, and he is like a minimalist, so he lives with like fuck all. But he's, funnily enough, he lived with one of our families that did better. So he was like from a better, like a well-off family.
And he wants less.
Yeah, he wants less. But I think why we share that a lot, like my family, it does a lot, is that we can do without a lot, in a sense. But yeah, I do know about stoicism, but but my wants are different, bro. Like mine's like life experiences, good times, hang out with friends.
Well, that's the key things in life. Like at the end of the day, you get to the end of your life and you've got like a bunch of like crazy stories.
Yeah, exactly.
So
well, and I'm there, like, I'm telling them now and people want to hear them, and I'm like, thank fuck, I've collected them like Pokemon again.
Yeah, literally. Well, I mean, specifically on the stoicism thing, it reminded me of what you were saying. I read one of the books a while ago, I think it was like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and there's a concept in there of basically living like you were a poor person, maybe like once a month or once every couple of months. And I'm talking like sleeping on the floor, like eating the cheapest, nastiest like standard of food that you would put your nose up to effectively, and doing it for a few days and living like your worst fear came true, basically. And then the idea is that if you do that, you realize that actually it's not that bad, and it gives you much more strength to be able to push forward and take risks and create from a place of no fear, because you've got, if it goes to shit, that's
worst
my
case
outcome, and that outcome is going to be okay. So this is like a specific thing.
Exactly what you're saying is exactly me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you've internalized a really key Stoic philosophy into your life based on your experiences, and it probably shows how you could, that it shows that with that attitude you can take risks.
Yeah,
and you have. So on the let's dig into the risk of the nightclub. You mentioned that it wasn't the best way to make money in this space. So what were you thinking when you took that risk, and how did it play out, and what are some interesting lessons and experiences that you took from it?
So we did well. Like it was just a slow way of making cash. So when you're a promoter, like you can really make cash quick with fuck all risk.
Yeah.
Because you own the market in a sense. Yeah. So when you do nightclubs, you've got rent, you've got regulations, you've got APRA, you've got bartenders, you've got wages. Like the amount of cost is so much bigger, and they're like, the term they use is bricks and mortar. So it's like stuck there. When you're a promoter, your cost, they're just your DJs and your door girl, and your flyers and your marketing and whatever. But if it doesn't work, you just move off. Yeah. And so whereas if it doesn't work in a nightclub, you're stuck there. So I did that, and we did well. Like I think I like 6 or 7x my money over the period, which is it's not a bad investment, right? 7 years I did.
Okay.
So it's like it was not the worst in.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and like there was also maybe could have been cash somewhere, but over the time that I don't count. But it was like it wasn't a bad investment, but I just could have invested quicker. But the reason why I did it was because I don't know, I had this unfounded thought of like, well, that's what success looked like. So success looked like owning a nightclub instead of or owning things. And then in hindsight, I look back and I'm like, well, I could have just run that door and I would have made way more money than if I owned the club. But the lessons that I learned again was how to manage teams. Like these are these things that how to work and deal with police, and how to be professional in a meeting with like be it an alcohol company or a plumber, like working out how to deal and defuse situations. So I learned a lot of things through it. So I would say it was an amazing experience because I learned so much, things that I never would have as a promoter. But I'm like real big on like, it wasn't a fail, it was so far from it, but I'm a big believer of fail. So I'm like, failing is not failing, it's learning. Like I know that's kind of a bit of a niche thing to say, but it's just so true. So we had things we did wrong, and we didn't pay.
What's an example of that?
Like I think it was PayYG or one of those things like that. We had not done properly because we didn't really understand it, and then we ended up having like a $700,000 bill, and it took us 2 years to pay it off. We paid it off and we did it. Another one was like not getting the right permits. We started building it inside, and we didn't do the wheelchair permits and do this through the council, so they shut us down. And then because I was building a club, no one would touch me. I couldn't work anywhere because why would you hire a guy who's about to open a club? So I had to basically go back to, like I said before, sausages whilst we battled with cancel. So I had to figure those things out, and then you get better at it. You get better and better and better at it, and you start to make less and less mistakes. And even with the alcohol company, man, same shit. Like we'd go through ebbs and flows and they get shorter. So instead of making 10 mistakes, next time you make 8, and the next time you make 6, and the next time you make 5, and the next time you make 4, and then it's like you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, when you make a mistake, it goes from being like knocking you down to making you confident. You're like, fuck, okay, cool, I've learned that one now, I won't do that again. I survived, dust myself off, keep going, you know? As long as your mistake's not too big, but even then, I think I've never had a business that has gone pear-shaped that I didn't give up on. So it's like if I continued to like really believe in it, I can always figure out how to get it back going. But all the ones that I have shelved, it's because I'll be like, fuck no, I personally don't want to do this anymore. You know, so it's like a personal thing, not like so I don't believe there's a full stop until you put it there. It's always a comma, and unless you want to figure it out. That makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. You mentioned that a little while ago in the post you did about Hello Sunshine cancelling its recent event. You spoke about it being, you know, it's not necessarily a full stop, it could be a comma. So that's a big, you know, that's a big hit, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I've just come off the back of, you know, trying to scale up to a festival, and $250,000 went down the drain pretty quickly. So let's talk about that specifically. What mistakes led you to the outcome where it was required to be cancelled, and then what lessons have you garnered from it?
Just quickly though, I love doing this podcast. If it's positively impacted you in some way and you would like to support us, please subscribe. By subscribing, it allows us to build a much bigger base of listeners, which results in better guests, better production, and a better show overall. Alternatively, please take a look at the affiliate links of the products that I use and love in the comments below, and consider purchasing using those links. They'll give you a discount, and they'll also provide the podcast a small kickback. These are 2 very easy ways for you to support us as we continue to grow the podcast that we absolutely love doing. Thank you for your support, and now back to the episode.
So one of the things that we fucked up on was that it was a P&L thing.
Yeah.
So we had thought if we hit X amount, we would lose, like, I think it was $200,000. So it's really a weird thing to talk about, but like, I was like, fuck yeah, boys, we only lost $200,000. And clapping hands.
Is this year 3?
1. This is year 1.
Year 1, okay.
And then we're like, sweet, we're on, because like we're going to get back, you know, the $800K pool we've got to play again next year. We're sweet. We knew this was going to happen. And then, but we fucked up. So like it ended up creeping into like 350 instead. And it was our mistakes because we overspent and things like that, and overcapitalized. So it was like, okay, well, we've got to chip some more money in, we'll go again. Year 2 did really well. We broke even, and 20% growth. We're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And then year 3, this is where we made the mistake. You know, it's all good in hindsight, looking back at it. But we were like, oh, let's get some international artists. Let's do Gold Coast. It's going to bring down our cost by 20, 30%. We have a stronger buying pool. We'll kill it up there, or we'll not kill it, but like we'll lose there. But what we make on that 20% growth for this year, because we did it last year, we should do it again. That's going to pay for the loss. And then, boys, we're going to be counting fucking squillions year 4. And it didn't work out that way. And I think a lot of it's obviously to do with the market. It's pretty fucked right now. I still believe in the idea, but what happened was Melbourne looked like it was going to break even, but the loss in Gold Coast was worse than what we expected. So we were staring down, we were chasing $1 million. Like that's what, and we had 2 months to go.
Oh shit.
So that's not including bars and stuff. So, you know, it would have came down to wherever it was. And it was a really hard decision, but we're looking at the loss and we're looking at the, what we were chasing, and we're just like, okay, well, if it rains one day or something it's fucking windy, you know, like we could be in real trouble here. And then the loss, then we were going to continue, and it happened really, really quickly. We're going to continue, and because we worked out routing for Stone Temple Pilots, which is a headliner, and it was too hard. It was going to cost $160K. So like, you know, the risk is effectively the same. Let's just continue on. And then they came through and gave us an option that meant that we weren't going to have to change routing and change the pricing. And we're like, okay, well, fuck, that brings it down by over 100,000. And then it was like, okay, well, we talked to this person and they were happy to do this and this and this. And I went down this list of things that people had to say yes to that we thought were unlikely for us to make that decision. And people kept saying yes. And so when you're talking about, I think we raised $1 million or 1.1 million or something like that. You're looking at that and going, okay, well, we're going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, or we can guarantee, still hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we can guarantee this loss rather than this could blow out and be 3 times or double what it was. As a business guy, you just got to make that decision, and it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And we're going to tear it up. Like you said before, you pretty quickly lost $250,000. Like we probably tore up $1 million now. And things are looking a little bit better with bits and pieces. A lot of people come to the table and helped out. I think that video that I did actually helped. So we might end up having, it might be hundreds of thousands, but in the top end of closer to 1 million. So do we do it again? Like I said in the video, it's a comma, it's a full stop. Like I want to. And I guess the lesson that I've learned, if I do it again, is that I would like to stay at like 6,000. Yeah. Because I think as promoters, we look at it and we go, well, you did 11. To get to 15 is not that hard, but that's the danger zone. Because so many things have to go right and your expenses go up because it gets bigger. You need bigger artists. So it's like you effectively spend more and hope to get more, but it's actually harder to get more. So looking back at it now, it's all hindsight, but I wish we'd done 6 because, we smacked 6 2 years in a row. If I'd kept it like a local lineup.
Could you make it profitable at 6?
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been, like we were looking at it going, year 5 we'll make $1 million. It's like this might make 100,000 or 200,000, but I'm not really doing it to retire. So now I'm looking at it in hindsight and going, fuck, if this ran for 20 years and it could make 100 grand a year, like I'm happy with that, like that's a great thing, great experience. And it goes back to why I started it. I started it because I wanted my kids to experience the life that I've experienced backstage and meet artists that they love. Second to that, I get to be around my best friends and listen to stuff that we listened to when we were younger. I can achieve that without a lot of risk if I stop chasing the dollar. And I still will make money, but and it will be a great business, and it could be a legacy festival, but I'm trying to grow, and I guess it's all promoters. That's all promoters' problem. They all do well and they try to succeed better. I don't know why we all do it, and that's the mistake that we made. So trying to grow and trying to be better, and vision of grandeur was ultimately like what got us to the neck. But you live and you learn, and it happened to me, and everyone's like, "You're devastated." Like I personally tore up $200,000 myself. It's a lot of money, and I'm not really it's another lesson I learned. Like I'm not fully disheartened. I'm obviously a little bit deflated, but at the same time, I'm like, well, I know now not to try to go bigger when you've got a great concept and idea, and then I hope I can have another crack at it, be it 1 year or 2 year or whatever. And it probably sounds wild to someone to think that I've tore up so much coin and I don't want to let it go, but we'll see where it goes. I guess it's another lesson, expensive one, but it's another lesson in life.
Yeah, I understand that completely. I'm not quite at the point where I'm like, yeah, let's go again. I'm done for a while. That shit gave me so much anxiety.
It's fucked. It's actually fucked. But the thing, it's just like, that's where I go back. And I guess it's why I started my social media stuff. It's like, I just felt like things would close and people would rag these guys, and I knew them personally. And I was like, they're just a music lover. And people like greedy dogs, they're charging 15 a drink and they're doing this and fuck that dude, he should have done this. And the artist blew out. And they knew before that thing. And I'm like, I know these guys. They started with me in little tiny nightclubs with local shows, and they fucking love it like me. And you guys think that they're like these multinational Rupert Murdoch types, in yachts, and it's just so far from the truth, man. I know way more broke festival promoters than I do rich ones. I literally know
most
3
of them. Are broke.
Everyone else I know is struggling to get by, and they do it for the love. And it was what motivated me to get into social media was the hate and the mistrust and kind of idea of what a festival or music person was. And I'm like, bro, these are some of the most pure people I know who really are trying to make other people's dreams come true. Like every artist, whether you're DJing at a bar or you're playing at a local community festival, the aim is to play at a festival, so these guys are building these dream places for people to build their dreams and create these dreams, and everybody wants to rip them down. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, you're actually, when we had to cancel Coaster Jam, the way you were approaching your media stuff was a bit of an inspiration to get in front of it. Similar, I did a similar thing to you. I'm like, hey, look, this is a situation.
You did a great job.
Super candid. So I was so anxious and so stressed about that at the time, and I was like, fuck, a complete fail. My whole life was that. There was nothing else really, and but the only thing that made sense was just be straight up and just let the chips fall where they may. So
you did it, I did it, and then it's others don't, and then I guess that's probably why they create these monstrous human types. But the reality is they're fucking broken. They've lost a lot of money and they're embarrassed. That's the truth, right? And then in our industry, it's there's a lot of people oh, that guy failed or this didn't work, and then they're just trying to keep. It's a lot of ego. They're trying to protect their ego, but it's misrepresented where people are well, this person's a greedy dog, and there's people out there that do it. I'm not saying there's not, but I feel predominantly most people that work in the music industry are music lovers. And that's why they do it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just trying to defend them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look at the core of it, right? Like, you are creating environments that are safe for people to connect.
Yeah.
Like, you probably got similar stories of, you know, you'll get these messages, or you'll see someone get married and you're like, oh, they met at one of my fucking events.
I love it, man.
Yeah. Like, the amount of just stories that just develop off the back of the stuff that, you know, you've put on are astronomical.
It's interesting you say, because like I was talking to Dean Pass from Orchestrated, and then I'm like a real kind of like G up guy, right? I love G'ing people up. And they was talking, he's like, I don't really get the interest. I'm like, bro, the amount of people who, you know, we've gone through a rough time and then they met their best friend that was somewhere you played, or the amount of people that you lifted their mood in a time that, you know, they needed it. I'm like, or they met their partner in a club because they went there because you were playing. I'm like, the amount of fucking storylines that arc off you over the last 20 years is insane. You can never ever fathom it. I'm like, that's why we do it. You know, that's why we do it. And he's like, I think I'm pretty good at Gene. I'm like a footy coach. But I was like, it's a fucking truth. You know, I always think about it. Like, a lot of my best mates met their wives and they married them from clubs that I ran. I'm like, how special? You know, how cool?
Yeah, definitely.
No one gets to do that. You know, we do. Yeah, like, so, and we get to, like, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how do you make it financially feasible so, as well.
And these days it's getting harder and harder.
It is getting harder and harder, but that's all right. I mean, we learn, we grow, we try again, hopefully, and you know, maybe the next one on when you go back and approach the festival again might be the one that hits.
Yeah, totally.
You know, well, you know, at that point, you've done the club, you've done the festival. Let's talk about how you then moved into the consumer goods side of things and the lessons that you took from your early years that allowed you to be successful in consumer goods.
So COVID is what forced me into it. And it's obviously a crazy story that people love, but it's wet pussy shots. If you live in Australia, you've drank wet pussy shots, you had them. Like, there's almost zero chance you haven't had one. In a bar or a nightclub. And the reason why we would make them in bars and nightclubs was because they were super cheap, and we could make them for like 60 cents. And we could sell them for $5, and it would help bring people in because there was value to it and blah, blah, blah. So my business partner, he goes and trademarks it. And it's like, there's no way. And it comes through. So we then decided to design this bottle, and it was for nightclubs. It definitely was not for consumers or people to sell. And we're like, well, we can make it this consistent strength. No one has to make it. Similar price, like just a little tiny bit more. Bottle on a brand. We can reinvest money into it and help them sell more of it.
Yeah.
This makes sense. And it was meant to be a side venture. And it was meant to be a side venture that we're going to have so that when clubs shut down because of COVID, because it looked like it was going to happen forever, we could make enough money to not have to stress the fuck out all the time.
Yeah.
So, and then it just blew up. So it turned into this, it went viral, like legitimately went viral. And I don't think there's a lot of products that do. It's almost like a prime in a sense. Like, it went spastic.
Was that orchestrated, or was that just like natural?
No, natural. So it was like, what had happened was someone had posted it online, like just randomly. I don't even know how they got it. And it was like some bottle shop in Ballarat. And the reason why that happened was because COVID locked up again and we had all this stock. We had like 2 pallets, and we're like, we'll just get rid of it and we'll worry about it when they open back up. And my business partner, he used to sell to like distributors, they're called. And he's like, oh, I can clear it out through my mate. Like, it's like an NQR clearance center. So he sent him, say, a pallet or whatever, and it went into market, and then they put it on the front counter, like, you know, whatever it was then, $20 for a bottle. Someone posted it, went viral, and then 7 days in a row, others were posting it, it was going viral. And the only thing I orchestrated was I made like a video where I said I went to a bottle shop and I asked her, did they have the wet pussy, because it kept going viral. No one knew who I was then.
Yeah.
And then the guy was like, oh, mate, this is a bottle shop, not a brothel, and like blew up. And then that blew up.
Did you?
I just did it, yeah, just pretended to be a consumer.
Did they know?
No, that wasn't a true story. It wasn't a true story. I made it up.
Sorry, I mean, was that answer like orchestrated? Or
yeah, of course, yeah.
So that's crazy if it was natural.
No. So I just jumped on the back of everything going viral. Like, you know, had those moments.
Yeah.
And I sort of played into that. And then after I was like, oh, I'll send it to my influence friends. So I sent it to them, and a couple of them, I was like, hey, you got a party coming up? Like, here's all this stock. And they started posting it, and we just started watching the hits on the website. I remember that was one of the guys, Troy Candy, who's a good friend of mine now, but he posted, we had 7,000 hits in an hour. I was like, fuck, this thing's kicking off. So we built a Shopify, like full-blown, like nuts and bolts, just put it together within 3 hours. We sold $3,500 in the first hour of stock. And then from there, just been like, hold on. Like, we turned in, obviously, to other alcohol brands, and we've done whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing that I learned from nightclubs in that lesson was obviously the brands and stuff and how we created it and the hype and all that. But it was all the failures I had prior was how I could manage it. So the fact that we bolted together the website, worked out how to do it, figured out how to do the factories, and we were able to contain that hype and turn it into a multi-million-dollar business in its first year was because of everything we'd done prior. Yeah. And so from the nightclubs to the promotion to literally every job we'd had, we were able to contain that hype. If this happens to me at 25 years old, it probably falls over in a month because I don't know what to do. But we were able to grab that tornado and put it into a jar and then turn it into what it is today. And then we were able to figure out why and how that worked and replicate it and do it over and over again. We've got like 7 or 8 brands now, all that are very, very successful in the majors across Australia. So we're able to replicate it and change it. But it's the other thing is being so disruptive. Like how I am now, you're watching me, you know me for a long time, this is me. I sit in meetings with Coles dressed exactly how I am now. And they fucking love it because they don't get it. They're like, okay, you've had, you do G up now, you've got Ugly, you've got with your grog, WP, Sourpuss, WP, I always say that name because I'm so scared to say wet pussy. And then all these things, and they're like, okay, well, this independent brand has just gone bang, 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 bang. And I'm not, like I'm one of the guys, but they look at it, they don't get it, they know it works, and they love it, So it's all my hindrances and the way that I spoke and talking quickly and swearing a lot has now become my appeal. It blows my mind, man. And even with the social media shit, it's like I was always told I talk too quick, I could never be a public speaker. And then now people, I love how he's just straight to the point. Everything I was always told about myself is like now what makes people want to watch me. It's weird.
So what lessons can you take from that? That's a very, I feel like it's a very powerful point that I'd like to kind of dig into a little bit more.
I see with that, it's like a lesson I can learn from that is like, again, it goes back to just having a go. Like I had a crack at it, but I don't fucking know. The world changed for me. Like it wasn't the other way around. So I didn't change for the world changed for me. And then I felt like a square peg trying to fit into a circle hole. And then at some point that circle hole turned square and I slid straight into it. So then I'm this older, eccentric, fast talking, unapologetic character, and then that's what the world wants all of a sudden, But beforehand, that was my hindrance. Like I would walk into a meeting and they'd say, well, he's not polished enough. He doesn't, he swears, he talks too quick, and all the things that were sort of like boundaries for me are now the complete opposite. So I guess it's still agility, being able to move and change. And then obviously at the same time, it's like just sticking true to yourself. Like authenticity is the answer. So I never changed, I stayed the same. And now the world caught up to me in a sense, which is, I don't know how, that's fucking crazy and weird, but at the same time, I'm still the same person, be it now, be it with Major, with Coles and whatever. And I think that's impossible to fake. That makes sense.
Yeah, you can't fake it. And I think that's the point.
Yeah, and I think being authentic is probably the key lesson that I've learned, is just stay true to yourself, and then I think things will figure themselves out.
The media stuff has really taken off recently. I think maybe, we'll talk about the book Outliers from the start. It's a time and a place, and it seems like people are sick of polished.
Totally, man.
And they just want straight up, just like info.
But now people are faking it, So like you look at guys like Adam Sullivan from EBT, huge, right? Comes out, just starts calling people names and doing whatever, like saying they're fat and rah. There's fucking 700 of them. Like, come on. And they're literally like, you want to know what's fucking shit for you? Pow. I'm like, do something different, or just be you, or work out what it is. And it's one of those things, and it's hard. Like I didn't do this. Like I should give credit to someone else. Like it wasn't my idea to be like, oh, I'm going to tell stories and yarns on TikTok and blow up. It was actually a girl that works for me who's 21. Her name's Chrissy Doan. And she used to work for Untitled, and she was like I met her through them, and then I hired her and poached her. And I would just tell yarns, right? So the last 20 years, it's like, I've got all these fucking crazy stories. They never run out. I've always been a good storyteller because effectively I'm a publican. I have a different personality because I didn't grow up as a tradie. I didn't grow up as a corporate. I sat in this sort of weird world where I was able to just never really evolve into either.
Yeah.
And then she was like, I just find you so interesting, and then you should just tell these stories to the camera. And I was like, all right. So it was almost like a kind of a lucky break in a sense.
Yeah.
But I have to give her credit because it wasn't my idea. And I think, again, you look at a lot of these people and their stories they tell, and they effectively, it normally starts the same. Something kind of random happens, or they did something, or they said something, and then it just goes completely spastic. And then it's what you do from there, I guess, how it goes. But I don't know, man. As I told you, it's been a year and I'm just starting to get used to it. So
yeah. I mean, I think maybe just like trusting your gut and going, you know what, let's give this a go.
Yeah.
I think the core of it is just giving it a crack and being.
Yeah, I'm always just give it a go. Like everyone's always like, oh, I've been thinking about. Every time someone says it, I'm like, just give it a go. Like, I've been thinking about doing this thing online. I'm like, just try it. Yeah. And like you never know. And like, and this is a cool example. So I was with a guy called Mike Metro, which no doubt you know. Good friend of mine still. Fucking love him. Mitzi, if you're out there. And he's a very interesting cat. Like one of the most interesting people. Had the world on his shoulders. You know, was about to blow up and be a big artist. Quit, became a Hare Krishna, and then now he's a funeral director. Right? Super interesting.
So random.
That's what I was saying. But I love interesting people. Myself and him go watch Leon Bridges last night at the Bowl, and we're talking about the band before, and I think they were called Glass something. So Glass Animals or something like that. I can't remember the name. Like,
do they wear masks?
Yeah, those guys. Yeah, and they make like Indian background.
Yeah,
music.
they're pretty interesting.
Anyway, so we're watching it, and Mike happens to know someone in the band. He's having a conversation with the guy, and this guy had worked on music his whole life. You know, got a corporate job, and basically gave up. And then he was just like, "Fuck it." He had Indian roots and started to write these Indian roots into this like kind of electronic music. Puts it up online and blows up. Yeah, like, and now they're traveling the world. They sold out.
It's a cool show. Like, it's a great show.
I watched it and I was like, it was cool. The music was really nice, but I was like, how are they so big?
Yeah.
They've got 800,000 followers.
Yeah.
Like, they don't even sing.
They got a niche, man. They found their niche.
But this guy, from him, he's sitting there scratching his own head going, how the fuck this happened? But this is what happened. He made something that he thought might be cool.
Beams.
Glass beams.
Yeah. I was like, fuck.
So he made something that he thought might be cool and he put it in the world and people agreed. Yeah, like that's it. So it's like, if it be it, you know, a FMCG product, a club night, a DJ brand, a bit of music, what's the difference between you and that person that blew up is they had to go. And like, there's millions and millions of things that don't work, but like everyone forgets, bro. Like if I put up a video now and 2 days it doesn't work, who cares? You know, like who gives
put up
a
a
shit?
new one, try again.
Yeah, and like if I want to do stuff, I'll do. This is a random thing I'm going to drop to you right now, but obviously we're in film. But in COVID, I made a song which I'll show you afterwards. And I sent it to a friend who sent it to a friend who sent it to a friend. And now a record label wants to sign it. So I mean, you mean like if I didn't make that song and then send it to that person, it doesn't happen. Like, and my life is crazy and all these things happen. But I think the reason why it's so wild is I just give it a go.
Give it a go.
Yeah, and if it's like that song, everyone forgets it. If it's fucking horrible, they move on with their life. You know, like then I just muck around with something else. But I just if you're thinking about doing something, it sounds strange, but just fucking do it. If it fails, you could be sitting here telling crazy yarns about how I just put it up online and made $1 million. Like you'd be not going to happen if you don't try.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I've got, before we move into some more like general philosophical stuff and get you out of here, there's one comment I want to make on the podcast side of things. Like I think this will be like episode 90. And I was looking back at the first episode and I had this attitude, it's like, fuck, let's just give it a go. Let's see what happens. And I look back at the first episode now and I'm just like, these are disgusting. These are horrible. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. But then fast forward to episode like 50, I'm interviewing people who have been on some of the biggest podcasts in the world. And at the end of the podcast, I'm getting comments like, oh, you're really good at this. You should keep doing this.
Yeah.
And it blows my brain because a year ago, I was looking at the content I was putting out and I was like, I fucking hate that. That's horrible. But kept going, just kept trying. And TBC, hopefully it lands, but there's been a few pinch me moments with guests of people that I've looked up to, authors, people that have I've been following for years that randomly come on that I'm just like, how the fuck? But I think I'm very close to, maybe it's done by the time this comes out, but randomly met the manager of one of the band members of Cold Chisel, and I think I might be getting one of the band members of Cold Chisel on.
That's mad.
Which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But that's again what we talked about earlier. When like you do something over and over and over again, you can't be shit at it. Like there's nothing you can do 100 times and be worse at than when you started.
Exactly. So on the desire to get you out of here at reasonable time, I want to talk about a couple of little things, general philosophical aspirations, and then we'll get out of here. So what's the biggest thing in the last 2 years you've changed your mind on?
I would say that work is everything, which is probably like a bit of a polarizing comment considering how much I work. Mm-hmm. I was very, very stressed. I had a lot of shit going on with business partners, deals. My company was growing at a rapid rate, and this is February last year, March last year.
Yeah.
And I was overwhelmed, right? And I didn't think I was. Like, that was the other part. I didn't think I was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And then I was going to a festival, CMC. It's like a country music festival. Didn't really want to go. Wasn't mad in the country. And then my mates were going, but it was too far for me to get out. And like, I really wanted to not go.
Yeah.
And then we landed
Token Wall or something?
No, it's in it's in Queensland somewhere.
Okay.
So it's some random, like, not, I don't know, some random town.
Yeah.
Now that's going to kill me, but I'll remember it and I'll say it out loud. But yeah, there's basically, flew up there, didn't want to be there. You know, I'm dealing with lawyers and people on my breathing down my neck and da-da-da. And then I remember getting in the car and I said, I've got to go get something. And I didn't. And I got in the car with my missus and I'm like, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. I'm fucking stressing out. I'm hating it. I should be at home. I should be working, you know, like rah, rah, rah. And then she goes, just have fun. And like, she's like, just relax, have fun. I'm like, I can't. Like, really felt like that. So we get there and I'm worried about the internet because there's no internet at this festival. Get there and I have like a couple of drinks with my friends. Go that night. We're dancing to country music, having the fucking time of my life, playing dress ups. I'm there for 4 days. And I came back so recharged. And I was just like, and what the changing moment in my life was, I was like this. Those 4 days, I forgot about all those problems. And I'm like, you know what's important is the people that I love, my friends, my family, and this. Yeah, and like all that shit is not that fucking important. Like, these people can wait till fucking Monday. This issue can sit beside myself, and if it doesn't work or it doesn't happen or it doesn't whatever, I've still got these people who I love, who I care about, who I generally want to be with. They don't go if I'm rich, famous, poor, broke. So I'm like, that's where I changed my mindset. So my mindset changed to being like, I don't really care on the outcome, and it probably has made me a better business guy and content guy and all that sort of stuff. Because I'm like, as long as I've got what I care about, which is my best friends and my family, then nothing else matters. And like, that was this pivotal point where it was like changes. And like, even now I'm doing stuff and I'm working, just nothing really overwhelms me because I'm just like, it starts to, and I'm like, well, who gives a fuck? You know, like, you're going to see your mates in the weekend. Like, that's all that matters. And the world's still going to revolve, and your house is still going to be here, and your kids are still going to give you a kiss when you come in through the door. It's like, they're the things that matter. Who cares if some dude's breathing down your neck because the order didn't get there in time? You're like, he'll live. And if that doesn't happen and you lose your job, you'll get another fucking job.
Yeah, you make something else.
Yeah, you'll do something else. Like, that's how I feel. So that was a really pivotal point where I worked out what mattered more.
Yeah, I love that. Nice. Yeah. What on those notes of, you know, family and people supporting you and, you know, giving you some more context of how to live a better life, what's the kindest thing anyone's ever done for you?
I saw this question the other day. I was thinking about, I've got heaps, obviously. Like, my friends are so important to me. Like, I love them. And it's kind of weird because I feel like I'm going to get overwhelmed because I don't have family. Like, I don't have a lot of them.
Yeah.
But my friends
created your family.
Yeah, but they're like the best people in the world. Like, I love them so much.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I'm so lucky and blessed to have those people in my life. So them being my friends is the kindest thing. But the one kind of unique one, it's a really weird thing, and it probably shows how damaged I am. But my mother-in-law, right? So she was in France, and there was like, I like weird things. Like, I'm not a person you go buy a Gucci handbag for, you know? Like, I'm a kind of guy that, like, you'll find something in the trinket store that is an old boxing book, and that's what I like. So she, at Christmas time, she'd been in France for school, and there was this thing, and it said, I think it was Revolve, or whatever it was. Yeah, it was Revolve. And then the love was backwards in it. So it was like love, but Revolve, whatever. And then whatever the exact photo was, but it was a piece of graffiti on a wall in France, and she took a photo of it and she framed it and she gave it to me. And I was like, I actually got emotional. Yeah, because I was like, it wasn't the gift. Like, sounds weird to talk about it, but it was the fact that she thought enough of that thing on the wall that she thought about me. If that makes sense. So pretty weird, bro. But like, that's the little things like that when people like think about me, like outside the box, where it's not like doing something just traditionally nice. It's like when I'm like, oh fuck, you really get me. Yeah. And I do sometimes feel like an outlier and an outsider, and I do feel, you know, eccentric and strange and sometimes hard to understand. I get that's the appeal when people hang out with me, but when someone fully gets you, you're like, fuck, you get me. Yeah. And so that's the nicest thing. Yeah. Like, not just that's a situation of, but like when people really do understand who I really am.
Yeah. Awesome. What's the single most important lesson you've learned in your lifetime, do you think? Let's pull all of this together. What is the defining point?
It's back yourself.
Yeah.
So like, always back yourself. Like, and there's a thing, it's sort of all the people I'm about to, like, it's not, you know, you talk about like Galileo or Shakespeare, I'm about to quote 50 Cent. But it was one that I was like, fucking true, bro. Like, I was sitting there and 50 Cent was like, he kind of like, not super upbringing, I didn't get shot and shit like that, but from bad home. And then he's like, the moment that I learned that I like was going to get better in life is when I started to back myself. And the guy's like, oh, how'd you learn to back yourself? And he goes, I figured out that no one was coming. Yeah, and I know it sounds like a weird thing, but it's like, no one's fucking coming. If you don't do it, no one's coming to help you out. And and it sounds mean, but it's so upfront in your face. But it's like, if you don't give it a crack, if you don't work it out, no one's fucking coming to help you because they're trying to work out their own shit. So back yourself. And fucking no one's coming. That's how I feel.
Yeah, great. And what's one lesson you hope that everyone can take away from this conversation? The same thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's also to like, back yourself, also to live a life that's worth living. Like that's like a kind of a crazy thing. Like if you've got hesitations or you want to do more, you've got things in your brain that you're like, too scared to have a go at, even if it is jumping off a cliff in a swimming hole, just fucking do it. Like you've only got one go at life. And basically, in my opinion, it's like if you don't, you just live it. Like if you don't ever have hesitation, like obviously don't risk your life and kill yourself. But at the same time, it's like, just don't die wondering. Like that's what I would say.
Don't die, but also don't die wondering.
Yeah, of course.
between the spectrum of death and wondering, that's where you want to live, in the middle of that, the sweet spot.
It's funny because when I was away with my best mates over Christmas, and then at the end of it, I was like, I didn't almost die this trip. My mate's like, I reckon that's the first time we've been away where you haven't almost died.
Good, you're becoming soft, mate.
Grown up, finally.
Oh, I love it. And well, is there anything you're excited about at the moment you want to let the listeners in on?
I feel like I'm in a transition. I know we were talking earlier where I don't know where I'm going, what I'm doing. Like I obviously know my core, which is my alcohol company.
Yeah.
That's doing amazing. Like it's awesome. But I'm real what's next guy myself. So it's almost the fact that it is succeeding. I'm sitting there questioning like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I love the fact that I don't know. Like that's one thing I really like. I don't know if I'm going to do festivals. I don't know if I want to move into music journalism properly. Like give that a proper crack. When I say it's not like I'm sitting there as an option, but I don't know if I want to lean into YouTube. I don't know if I want to lean into band management. I don't know. So I guess from where it sits in Jan, like who fucking knows where I'm going to be at the end of the year. I'm just going to keep going though. I'm going to keep having a crack and doing what I do, but I really don't know what's next for me. And this is an outrageous statement, but I really want to do something to do with like a movie or a TV show. And I'm not saying this year, but I mean in the next 10. So if it happens, someone's going to cut this out and make it a clip. But I feel as though that's my next destiny, like storytelling at a higher level than just me in front of TikTok. Is that a book? Not about me, but just in general. Is that a story or is that a Netflix thing or whatever it is? Is it someone else's story told by me that I direct? I don't know, but I feel like weirdly enough, that's my destiny. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I think it's going to happen. But is this the year that I'm going to concentrate on that? I'm not sure. So it's a weird kind of answer, I guess. Like normally it's like, these are the highlight points, but I don't know and I'm excited that I don't.
Yeah, just a transition and having fun with it.
Yeah.
Good place to be.
I've got lots of good opportunities, right? Like I've got this media thing that's going on. I've got good channels of growth. I've got my businesses. I've got so many options and it's like, it's fucking cool to have them.
Yeah.
But I just got to figure out what I want to do, and I got to zone down to what I love and what I want to focus on. I'm just trying not to scattergun because sometimes when there's too many opportunities, you grab at all of them and then you end up with none of them. So I've got to figure out which one I want to take. Yeah,
for sure. I've done that mental exercise over the last 12 months after the events really toned down, and I've found the direction and the foundation is this podcast. So I know I'm probably maybe a few months ahead of the thinking of where you're at right now, and once you figure it out, you're like, sick.
This is the best.
Everything I'm going to do is going to, the answer is, does this help this goal?
Yeah.
Yes or no? And if it doesn't,
It's sort of weird, bro. Like I've been doing strategy stuff for all my brands, for the partners, and you just saying that, I'm like, I've got to fucking do some strategy stuff for myself.
Yeah, you are. You're the foundation of this whole thing.
Yeah. So I think I've got to do what I've been doing for my brands and my partners. I've got to work out like, what are my key pillars and what do I want to do? And I probably got a bit of workshopping myself.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, I think I try and spend once a year, I'll take myself maybe to like lawn or, this time I did upstate New York, just a little mountain cabin with a lake. And I just go there. I went there for 3 days. One of the days I did a bunch of mushrooms and just like sat and just thought and wrote, and it just like cleared my head. And I do that every year. And it's like this reset that just helps me like redirect and just go, all right, what's actually important? And every year I do it. It gets more effective I started a few years ago, it was okay. And then like last year, a bit better. And this year it was like,
Yeah.
and I come back fired up, clear, focused, ready to take it on. Because you have to get, especially as men, I feel like we need to get out of society
Yeah.
to reflect
1 million, man.
and align.
Yeah, going camping is like, it's one of those things. I'm from a country town originally. Like, nothing makes me more relaxed than doing fuck all in the bush.
Yeah.
Right? Which is so opposite of what people would believe that my character is. Like, if I had to choose between city or bush, it'd probably be bush. But I love both at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they both got their place.
100%.
For sure. So where can people find you if they're interested?
YouTube, Danny Rants. I think it could be Danny's Rants. It's one of the two. TikTok, Danny Rants again. Instagram, Danny Rants. And I'm going to throw this one into Weird One, and you're going to see some old school shit. But Medium is like another spot that I was on.
Yeah.
So Danny Grant, which I'd like to fire that back up again.
Yeah.
And then Spotify is another spot you can find me on. So obviously I have the podcast, which is also super important to me too. And then my content and sort of, I don't know. You can find me via Google maybe even now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did some, I used Grok and Perplexity to do some initial like dot points on you, and you came up. So that's a good start.
I'm there now.
You've made it. Fuck yeah. Awesome. And all right, to wrap it up, last question for you, a little easy one. What do you think the meaning of life is?
I think the meaning of life is just living. Yeah, like I think the meaning of life is like family and love and like, experience. And, I actually thought 2 days ago, which is kind of wild, but I was kind of, I guess it was gratitude in a sense, I was sitting there grateful. I had a great weekend with my friends. I went away. It was a Bucks party. And, I got emotional before talking about my friends and my family. And I was just like, I'm fucking loving life. And it was the first time I've ever thought in my head, I'm like, I don't want to die because I love my life so much. Like, and I've never really cared or thought about that, but it was like, that's where it is. But I'm like, the meaning of life is this, like I want more of this as much as I can get of this. And that's the meaning of life, I don't think, I said it to a friend today, you don't die on your deathbed thinking about how many zeros you have in your bank account.
No.
You sit there thinking about the trip you took when you were 25, so I think that it's the meaning of life is living.
Yeah. Great. I love it.
Cool.
Awesome. Danny, thank you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your energy. This was dope.
Thanks, brother. I'm so keen to have sat down with you. I know it's been a long time, but really, really appreciate it, bro. And it's been wicked watching you from the sidelines kill it.
Yeah, same to you, man. Same to you. Cool. And if anyone's made it here this far, please give the podcast a subscribe, a rating. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. That's it.